We are live. Adjust the key slightly.
Just a real quick for mic check, is there any way that we can have the echo turned off? And I think that, I don't know if that solved it or not. So we are now also, oh, we're not frozen. Okay, good. Fabulous. Okay.
Okay. I think we are ready to begin. No echo, so that's good. So I would like to welcome everyone to the Community Development Advisory Committee on August 20th, 2024. This is the public hearing for the 2025 to 2029 Consolidated Plan needs, the 2025 Annual Action Plan needs, the 2023 CAPER, and the Citizen Participation Plan. So I'm just going to do kind of an overall procedures, and then we will move forward from there. But before we get to that, I'm going to have Mike O'Gorman read the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Stahobish people, and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you, Mike. So it looks like everyone is on mute, and committee members, if you're able to turn on your cameras, please do so. Guests, your cameras can remain off unless you're called upon to speak. Members of the public wishing to provide comment for discussion may do so in person or virtually when the public hearing portion of the meeting begins. The public can access the meeting through various ways, including the Everett TV channel or Everett's YouTube channel. You can call into the public call-in number at 425-616-3920. And the conference ID is 724-887-726 #. Or you can access the hearing online via the Microsoft Teams meeting link on the Citizens Advisory Board webpage at everettwa.gov. So I'm now going to pass the agenda over to the chair to take it over from here.
Thank you. I'm going to take roll call of the committee members. So Josh Greener, I'm here. Christina Aho.
Here.
Alexis Boyes. Michelle Martin. I don't think she. Yeah, I understand she has an excused. Susan Melsart.
Here.
And Michael Gorman. Here. And if the staff would like to identify themselves.
Vicki Doorway, Community Development Specialist.
Oh, Chelsea Monroe, Project Coordinator with Community Development.
Kimber Landry, Community Development Manager.
And then just a reminder for the committee members, when we are doing committee discussion, I will be calling on you. So please use the raise the hand function if you're on Teams or in person. And then I will let you know. And so I will go ahead and turn it back over to staff to begin their presentation.
Sorry, we are getting to a screen share here. Just a moment. And with that, Kimbra is going to take it away.
Thank you, Vicki. Yes, thank you for everyone for your patience. This is a new room for us to operate in. So it might just take us a minute to just kind of navigate some of the technical nuances for it. So our first item that we're going to look at tonight is our citizen participation plan. Before we really dive into the major components of the document that are significant, the whole purpose of this plan is really to guide our public process for the next 5 years. The citizen participation plan will run in coordination with the period for our consolidated plan and our assessment of fair housing report that we're going to put out. A lot of this is going to be guided by federal regulation that we have, as well as what the city has done over the last few years, especially following COVID, to kind of elevate and be available with public process. There's a lot of this is available to committee members prior to the meeting. It's also been posted online. Our old citizen participation plan that still is current for the current program year is also still available online if anybody would like to see what we've done in the past. But for tonight's discussion, we're going to really focus on just the important aspects of this. So I'll just kind of breeze through. There's background on the document, so why we do what we do, the importance of the fair housing report, how we go through our public process with city council, what explains the consolidated plan itself, how we compose the consolidated plan, what our equity plan, and what we do for affirmatively furthering fair housing under the federal rule for that. And then we actually get into the plan, the CPP, the Citizen Participation Plan itself, the federal regulation that guides our requirement to have this, and how we went about going to develop our public process for the consolidated plan. This is fairly consistent with what we've done in the past. This is also inclusive of what we ended up doing this year for public process. I will pause here and just say that the consolidated plan, the citizen participation plan, and the equity plan that supports the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule are all done every 5 years. So it takes a long time for us to prepare everything to be ready for such a long period of oversight. So when it says that we've done this a year and a half prior to the consolidated plan due date, that's correct. That goes into, for example, when we started talking in December of last year and January of this year with city staff, looking at what we needed to do to kind of plan out for the due date of the plans, which are going to be in May of 2025, and how we could go ahead and start to really kind of formulate some structure around that. Then that carries forward in the public outreach and engagement, of which you're going to be presented on tonight for where we are at with community needs and the community survey. And then we start to get into a little bit more of now what we ended up doing with that information and how we structure the rest of the consolidated plan following that process. One of the things I want to elevate for at least awareness with the committee is what happens when we go through amendments for our consolidated plan, our annual action plans. This has happened a few times over the last few years. Anytime that we go out for what's called supplemental funding, so we have extra money on hand, we need to be able to go out and have that used by the community, and we go out and we do additional funding rounds. Every time that we allocate additional money out, or every time we change a project had to withdraw from using federal funds and it was over a certain threshold, and now we have to reallocate money. Or turns out somebody wanted to start a new program and they thought it would end up benefiting these people, and it turns out that actually we need to have it changed so that instead it's going to end up having this kind of impact for benefit. I just want to add that we just had one of our committee members join us. I'm going to ask her to come up to the seat next to our other committee members. So welcome, Alexis.
Thank you.
We're doing a presentation right now on our first agenda item, which is the citizen participation plan. And so I'm just bringing up everybody to speed on the awareness that we go through an amendment process for the consolidated plan, annual action plan. And this is just important for the committee to recognize this is what dictates how we end up doing public notice every time that we have those additional funds, every time we need to make a change. What qualifies as just a minor scribe or edit versus us having to go through what we ended up doing for COVID, which was substantial amendments in the event of a disaster or declaration of national emergency, but it could also be local. So I would like for the committee to just be aware that this exists. This is important for you to know because it will guide some of the public process, some of your meetings for it. Another thing that's important to note here is that I mentioned earlier that this is pursuant to federal regulation. And so there's going to be times where this isn't going to necessarily match municipal processes. And that's intentional. That's because we have a stricter standard that we have to comply with. So, for example, this mouse is sensitive and I am not used to such a sophisticated mouse. So it's just going to take me a second. I'm going to scroll down and we're going to talk about here for public notices, hearings, and public comment periods. Typically, if anybody were to follow any of the regular municipal standards for public notices or hearings, just in case anybody's really interested in this, that's under Everett Municipal Code Title 15. We do not follow that because we're higher, as I mentioned, held to a higher, stricter standard. And so HUD requires that we have at least minimum 15 days of public notice prior to any meeting that you guys hold, which is the reason why we can't just turn on a dime and reschedule things. As much as I would love for us to have that flexibility, we cannot. This committee cannot. Other committees can do that in the city. You guys can't. In addition to that, we do have standards when it comes to posting of information and then public comment periods. Again, these are federally mandated public comment periods. These are the minimum. Everything that's in here is the minimum threshold for what we need. It's entirely possible that the committee goes, gosh, 30 days just isn't long enough. We really want to see it be 45. We can absolutely have the purview to do that, but we cannot go below 30 days. If that were something that the committee would be really interested in, we can totally explore that. I do want to mention that a lot of this, we also try and align with Snohomish County and Marysville because they're the only other two entitlement jurisdictions in the county. And so we try and time a lot of our funding stuff with them too. And they all go, we pulled various other municipalities that receive federal funding. We pulled their CPP plans, citizen participation plans as well, so that we could have consistency. And everything that's in here is already presenting that. So it is something that if you guys are interested in, totally happy to talk about it, but just kind of thinking about like if we do that, impacts of what that could have. But a lot of what's in here, again, this is the reason why we structure a lot of the meetings the way we do, where you're a month out from something, where we go out for funding recommendations and all of a sudden it takes a while, or we go out for public comment on anything you guys do. It's a reason why we have to wait a month, these requirements. So I believe that's it. Yeah, the rest of this is our requirement to provide accommodation, accessibility. Technical assistance is just general contact information. This plan, I don't want to scroll too fast because I'm somebody that gets motion sickness, but I'm going to, in chunks as best as I can work this mouse, also do that. So this plan, again, is available online for anybody to be able to review. After this meeting, it will be put up for 30 days, again, for this to even have comment as well. And then after that, this gets adopted in tandem with the consolidated plan and the assessment of fair housing report in next spring, when you guys formalize those other two plans. So until then, go ahead. If you haven't already, please take a look at it and let us know if you have any comments or any questions on anything for it. But this was just to present for first initial public review. So. Any questions for staff? And I know I don't know if anybody, if you are online and you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. But otherwise, I will also give it back over to our chair.
Thanks. Yeah, so at this time, if any committee members has any questions or want to provide any comments on the citizen participation plan? Seeing as not. I thought I heard somebody talking. I guess then at this time, I would entertain a motion from our committee to approve the citizen participation plan.
So move.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. So we can go ahead and take a vote. So on the committee, all those in favor of accepting the citizen participation plan, go ahead and raise your hand. Sure. So. All right. 5. And that is all committee members currently present. So it looks like the motion passes. Okay, so at this time, I will go ahead and turn it back over to Vicki for the keeper.
And before that, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I realized I had not hit the record button because we had been doing a bunch of testing earlier. So can you kind of restate what the motion was, just for the record, that what the motion was, that the vote, just if you could.
Sure.
I think they caught the tail end of it. I apologize.
So the motion was to, for the committee to accept and adopt the citizen participation plan. It was motion by Michael Verman, seconded by Alexis.
Other way.
Susan. And it received 5 votes. So it has passed.
Thank you. Thank you for summarizing that. Sorry about that, Josh, or Chair. So now we are moving on to the caper, and I need to share my screen for that. So I will pull that up. Great. Okay. So we will dig right into this. So this is leading up to talking about the 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan and the needs that we're going to be getting to. We wanted to provide a report on the accomplishments for the 2023 program year, which ran from July 1st of 2023 to June 30th of 2024. And the CAPER is a requirement from HUD, and it's due at the end of September. During the public hearing today, we're going to focus on the accomplishments portion of the CAPER, but the full CAPER and all the narrative sections will be posted on our website within a week. That's when the public comment period begins for the CAPER. That comment period, I'll say it again at the end, but that's a 15-day comment period. So it's different than the public comment period for the citizen participation plan and the priority needs and other items that we're covering. So let me get to, that's just some basic information on the CAPER, Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. And it's only for CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funding. And it's just like we talked about, it's showing the 1 year and the progress that we're making also on our 5-year consolidated plan, which was the prior one, the 2020 to 2024 program year plan. So this is kind of a busy slide. It's an exciting slide for me because we have done very well. So you see that the name of the goal, the indicator, and then the amount of funds. Cameron's laughing. And then the amount of.
I'm laughing because we had excitement from the committee for doing really well. I'm so sorry that just interrupted the flow of everything. Sorry.
That's good. Yes, well, I mean, it is. I mean, all of our subrecipients and everything have done so much work in the last 5 years, even with COVID and everything that's been going on. So, yes, so just explaining a little bit. So the amount that's listed there is just the amount for the 2023 program year. and that's the amount of funds that were expended for that particular goal. The strategic plan goals, that's the 5 years. So that's what we've accomplished for the 5-year consolidated plan period. And then the program year is what happened just for that 2023 program year that this paper is reporting on. So as I briefly said, subrecipients continue to meet and exceed their goals, even with staffing issues and other challenges that lingered from COVID. And some of these challenges continue to this day. So all the 5-year strategic plan goals have been exceeded, and only one annual goal was not exceeded. Many of the 5-year strategic plan goals were exceeded by quite a bit, as you will notice. And that part of that has to do, like the 59,000 under the strategic plan achievements for public services. Some of that had to do with additional COVID relief funding we received, CDBG COVID relief funding. In one case, it was able to be used for a food bank and meal program, and they were able to far out exceed anything that we had envisioned, obviously prior to COVID, when a lot of these goals and specific number amounts were thought of or planned out or brought forth for the 5-year consolidated plan back in 2019, 2020. So for the top one where it says the annual goal was not met for homeless prevention services, what ended up happening is the goal was 105, but that was when we had 2 programs that were going to be, that their achievements would count towards that goal. We found out that one of the programs, after the process had gone through, that they were determined to be ineligible according to HUD eligibility criteria for programs. So unfortunately, that program did not end up being funded. So one program actually exceeded the one program that did have funding, that was the eligible program. They were able to exceed their goal by 19. So they achieved 49. And then if you look into the overall 5-year strategic plan achievements, that has well exceeded what our strategic plan goal was. So going down to public services, that included behavioral health services, meal delivery services, housing and systems navigation, and a childcare subsidy. So with a little over $57,000, the goal was 81 persons served, and they more than doubled that. So they were able to pretty much double that achievement, which is really incredible, again, with all of the challenges that have been presented and happening since COVID. Moving down to rehabilitation of existing units, we have, so this includes like the community housing improvement program. This also includes minor home repair program. The amount of entitlement funds that were used were just over $225,000. And then you'll see it says revolving loan, and PI stands for program income. There was over $550,000, and those come from loan payoffs. So from prior projects in previous years where maybe they're paying off their home improvement loan. That money comes back as revolving loan income, which is then put back into the program. So with that, both the annual program year goal was exceeded, and you can tell that the 5-year strategic plan goal, again, has way exceeded what we thought it might do when doing the consolidated plan 5 years ago. Moving to rental assistance, 100 people were provided with rental assistance and exceeded their goal. So with a little over $41,000, 100 people received assistance with their rent. And that does include, it's not counted by household, it's counted by people. So if it's a household with 5 people in it, then that's 5 persons who receive the assistance, even though each one is, it's, you know, it's for the household, but it's counted by persons. A little bit confusing. And the other thing that's not on here, but we also still had some remaining COVID relief CDBG rental assistance funds that subrecipients expended during the 2023 program year, and that was about $59,000 worth, and that served 178 persons. So moving on to public facilities, that is a little bit different. You see some zeros in there and some blank columns, so I'll explain that just a little bit. So for the 2022 program year, we had a project, the capital improvements for the roof replacement at the village on Casino Road. For various reasons, that was delayed, partly because construction needs to take place during the summer, and by the time the environmental review and everything is completed, it was winter, so they had to wait. At any rate, that project wrapped up at the beginning of the 2023 program year, so we are counting those achievements for this CAPER. So that was just over $330,000 for the roof replacement, and that assisted, well over, I think, the 5,620 persons. That's based on the census tract that it's tied to for how we track it with HUD, LMA, area benefit. But really, I'm sure their goal was probably like 20,000 persons. So it's much exceeded the strategic plan. Sorry.
And that's because the agency that kind of leads that, so this is at the Child Strive's the Village. Child Strive has various agencies that'll operate within that facility. And so we have a lot of programs that can take advantage of the fact that capital improvements were done to all 4 buildings. And so that's also, I think, some of the stuff that we get stuck with in the federal system is that we have to tie it to the census tract numbers, but the impact probably is actually much greater. You want me to keep going, or are you ready?
I think I got it.
Okay.
Sorry, Chelsea.
It's okay.
I'll watch you while I'm on.
Totally fine.
And so the 2023 program year project has also been extended. So that project, part of it is going to start just after Labor Day. So we'll end up reporting on that one in the 2024 CAPER. So everything is kind of pushed back. Same with the public facilities and the city projects. Maybe Kimber.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's the reason why also we see that it's 5620 again for the next one. Again, the impact could probably be a lot greater. This one still is the public facilities for capital improvements now will end up being for security upgrades and flooring upgrades. We just got the roof redone. Now we're going to help with the flooring, especially in the kitchen that's used, I think, by the ECAP programs and a couple other programs. So it's going to be a really good improvement for a community asset that's in South Everett. That one, as it kind of goes forward, they just wrapped up for environmental's already been taken care of. Procurement for the contractors already in place. We're just waiting on the contractor to get their schedule lined up so that they can start. Everything's already been committed. So that one we absolutely expect to be done this year. And then the last one being the public facility projects for city projects. That one we're anticipating 15,000 to be benefited from those projects, but they're 2 completely different projects. We have transit one, that's the semi seats throughout the city. That's about 280 some odd seats, which is fabulous. We have 280 seats that are going to be sited at different bus stops throughout the entire city that have no other amenity. So it's a really good benefit. It's something that Transit's really happy about. They didn't have it in their budget to do it. CDBG got to step in and help support this. So we're really looking forward to that. We just got the clearance from HUD on the environmental for that, which took a long time, but now that one's actually going, and they should be able to secure the contractor into September and get things really going in October. So we're really excited about that one being accomplished this year. And then the Parks project is a pedestrian path improvement project that's at Walter Hall Park. That one, we worked with the Parks Department on securing a architect and a design firm. They ended up going through two rounds of choosing a contractor. The first contractor had some considerations when it came to the federal clauses, and so we had to go with the one that was able to jump in with those. And so now that's gotten secured, and now that they are currently doing the plans to then try and align what will actually be the capital improvements for it. That one's located, if anybody's familiar, there's a PUD solar project that's right next to that one at Walter Hall Park. And so this one actually is going to be right next to that. So it's a good kind of marriage of both other projects coming in and doing some environmental and other kind of like access improvements, as well as this then connecting the residences that are right next to the park. So both of those projects will end up expending, I believe, $850,000 total. And those should be all wrapped up when we present the 2024 CAPER to you next year. I know Vicki has more slides to present on this, but I just want to pause here because it's important to realize that as she's presenting the CAPER, when we start to dive into the 5-year needs, this is what it looks like to have those needs accomplished every single year. So the strategic plan goals, the strategic plan achievements, that's that 5-year period. The program year goals, that's your annual action plan. So every year that we come to you asking for funding on things, it's to get projects that support each of the goals that you will have already identified and what we're currently about to do tonight, which is why we wanted to give you a snapshot of what the last few years have looked like so that you can have good input and thought on what the next 5 years could be and will be. So.
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome.
I may need you to step in again.
Okay,
I'm
that's
gonna
okay.
try and get through this. Okay.
That's like the worst feeling in
Pause
the
for
world.
dramatic effect. Yes.
Okay, so these are, when we're looking at the prior consolidated plan, some of the outstanding priorities that were not as supported. There's a variety of reasons for this. Part of it has to do, obviously, the last consolidated plan, all of this activity was going on before COVID hit. So once COVID hit, their priorities shifted and basically to respond to the needs that were brought forth by the community, such as micro enterprise and small business assistance, rental assistance, food assistance, et cetera. The construction moratorium during COVID also put a damper on rehabilitation of rental units. Construction essentially came to a halt, and it took a while to return to kind of the new normal for construction. Another thing that happened is there was a lot of funding that became available during COVID that was easier to use than CDBG funds that have a lot of federal steps and processes. And so a lot of people were using those funds, not as interested in the CDBG funds during that time. There are, so a few of the goals on there, like the emergency shelter beds and the creation of new units. The city did have achievements in those areas, but they were not with CDBG funds. So we're saying that we did not meet these, but it was with the CDBG funding. Some ARPA funds were able to help with emergency shelter. There's all kinds of funding going in for creation of new units. It just wasn't through home funds that was utilized. So it's kind of a little bit deceiving, but still kind of shows a clear picture. Things like facade treatment. Most of these goals actually you'll find are going to be recommended for the next consolidated plan for the priority needs. I would say 4 out of the 5 are being recommended because they're still important and they're going to continue to be important. And we have more systems in place now. Things have returned, like I said, kind of to the new normal after COVID. So we're able to pick some things back up that weren't able to be addressed during COVID. So I'm going to conclude my portion of the presentation. But before we do that, I'm just going to show one last slide about the public process for the CAPER. And then I'll take questions. If the committee has any questions on any of the accomplishments and whatnot in the CAPER, we can address those as well. So, like I mentioned, there's a 15-day public comment period for the CAPER accomplishments. It's going to be posted online on August 27th or sooner. Again, that's a much more elaborate narrative document, so we're still finalizing some of the narrative. And then public comments will be accepted in writing to me at vdoorway@everettwa.gov through September 13th. So are there any questions before we move into the next portion of the presentation? Any from the committee? Questions from the committee at this time? Okay, let me get out of this and see if there are any.
Thumbs up from Christina.
Oh, thumbs up from Christina. Okay. That where we are? I'm here. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, I apologize for my coughing fit. Thank you, Chelsea.
You're welcome.
I owe you. All right. So yeah, we are going to move on to the next staff presentation on the priority needs, findings, and engagement, and all that information.
So one moment for technical. Adjustment, and then we're going to take it away. And I'm going to let Chelsea Monroe, our project coordinator, be the one to really launch us and open this up. And then we will then have time at the end for committee discussion afterwards. So
Sounds good.
you let me know when you'd like for me to move forward, Chelsea.
Move forward, thanks. This is not the PowerPoint for tonight. Sorry.
Which one is it? Hold the phone.
It's the 2025 seat where you can go up.
Let's go back.
Not, oh, did you put it there?
That guy. There we go. Right?
Like that. Under this.
Yes,
Oh, is it?
yeah.
Up, nope, on. Man, this is fun. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. There we go. Now we're.
Okay, now we can, okay, so, we're gonna talk community engagement, and outreach. So just to recap, this was the, kind of roadmap image that the committee was presented, back when we kicked this off, that demonstrates this journey that we're on, starting with phase one, which is the engagement that we're gonna be talking about tonight. But just for folks to, as someone that's new to this, I quickly learned there's a lot of very technical language, and I am a very simple layman's term person. And so visuals is helpful for me. Hopefully it's helpful as a reminder of where we're at in this journey together, and then the end goal. But this is just to recap from last time we met. So yeah, this is awkward. So we're going to talk public engagement and outreach, starting with kind of what some of our overarching goals were. So when the city did this 5 years ago, I believe there was we talked about like 360-ish responses. And so we challenged ourselves this year to have 1,000 surveys from the time we kicked off in February through August 2nd when the survey was open. Sorry. Some of our goals were to remove barriers to participate. So recognizing that, again, the world has changed a lot over the last 5 years since this was done. And so Even things like looking at the survey and again, trying to remove as much technical language from it as we could and making it really digestible for folks, whether it be paper copies, online, QR codes, again, whatever those barriers were for participation. And this year, we also had a big focus on subrecipient outreach. So we hosted a subrecipient lunch and learn where folks and agencies who have received funding in the past can come and just get a reminder of what this is, why it's important to them. As Vicki mentioned earlier, agencies in our community and abroad tend to have a lot of or still are struggling with having staff turnover. There's leadership positions, folks that we've historically worked with that aren't in those positions anymore. So making sure to give everyone an opportunity to connect. And then really focusing on leveraging existing events and gathering spaces. We realize if we were to say, come and learn about the survey and join us at, a new event, that may not be the most exciting turnout for folks. But if we're like, hey, Pride's happening, or there's already community gathering spaces that are natural for folks to congregate to, really looking at those as a way to connect with people. So those were our goals going into this process. So in order to connect with folks, we had a variety of collateral materials. So on the left, you can see a copy of the poster. The QR codes was directly to the survey. And then those were available both electronically and for distribution. I'm happy to say that the committee helped to distribute, I think it was like 84 posters that I know of, went up all throughout the Everett area, which was great. Thank you all for participating in that. And then the committee was also given an engagement kit, which included copies of like the roadmap that we went over, but gave folks some speaking points and just, again, a tool for engagement. I know some of the committee members, as they were dropping off posters to agencies, were able to have those one-on-one conversations, which just goes a long ways. And again, making sure folks feel connected to the work. So. And then if anyone wants one more reminder of the QR code, we had the paper copies, and then we collected the surveys via SurveyMonkey. We use that tool versus the forms because it's able to track and ensure that only one IP address, tech person, sorry, is collected at a time. So that way we can confidently say it wasn't one person that was able to submit duplicate survey responses. So for our engagement efforts, these were kind of the big buckets that we saw success with. So driving people to the city website, email blasts and newsletters. So this was both the listserv for the community development. This included the citywide newsletter. It went out several months. And then we also had at least one subrecipient, Habitat for Humanity, actually took the content and shared it on their newsletter to help broaden the reach, which was great. We had flyers and posters, which we've talked about. And then social media, as you'll see, ended up being one of the biggest ways that people were able to connect with us. It early on definitely got a lot of comments and engagement. I appreciated folks helping to respond and educate people and make sure that folks were understanding that this money is different than the general fund, and how we're collecting and information from the community really is impactful and how the committee is making decisions. So those were our engagement efforts. And then for outreach efforts, we had some folks from the committee went in to the Everett Library. The support team is the social workers that are city employees who are connecting with folks. They were really great about the follow-up. So, when someone's experiencing crisis, not the time to ask them to participate in a survey, but in that follow-up and aftercare, making sure that they're, again, when we're talking about removing barriers and giving everyone an opportunity, that they're having an opportunity to participate. We had staff attend Hot Meals Coalitions. We did poster distribution, the subrecipients. Myself and some other staff, we went to like the Salvation Army food distribution sites a couple times with paper copies, again, helping folks fill it out, answering questions. We did some presentations, and then media relations, I think, was something we were able to leverage more this year than probably 5 years ago. When we about a month before the survey closed, we had hit the 1,000 mark for surveys, which was great. And then My Everett News ended up picking up the survey and shared it on their social media. And there was at least 200 responses that directly came from that. So that really helped to bump us over. So I'm happy to report we ended up with 1,359 surveys, which is great. So really excited. And there's our committee member at the farmer's market. That was a really fun event. So, yeah, thank you. I apologize. I didn't realize how small this font would look on this really big screen. So, but just wanted to share kind of the demographics of who participated in the survey. How did you hear about us? Obviously, social media, as I said, really was. And I do think that people selected social media even just for like online in general. But that's definitely by far the biggest reach we had. The connections to Everett, the majority of people, about 80%, live in Everett, which you didn't have to live in Everett to participate. You could live, work, or care. But I think it feels good to know that the majority of people that participated do live here. And then we had a variety of participation throughout the neighborhoods. We had all the neighborhoods participate, which was great. We did add an I don't know option this year, which was different than in the past for folks that are maybe currently staying here and unhoused or really just don't know what neighborhood they're in. I know when we were at the market, we got a lot of questions asking us as staff to help folks clarify based on where they live, what one they were in. So, but Northwest neighborhood and Port Gardner were kind of the leaders. And then Bayside and Riverside were close third and fourth. And then the majority of folks that participated are in that 31 to 40 age group, which I don't know, I just thought was interesting, but I don't know how that compares to the.
Anecdotally, that's where we've seen the largest growth. Everett's had about 7.4% growth in population since 2010. And the 19 to 40 year range has been the largest growth or representation of that growth. So that's fairly representative to the demographic makeup that we've currently seen.
Awesome. So about 90% of folks identified as white, which I think in 5 years, an ongoing goal will always be to have a focus on diversity, not just with race, but for all of the information that's collected and making sure again that we're giving ample opportunity for folks to participate and be involved.
And yeah, and the only thing I'd add is also just representative of the community. Everett is more diverse than the percentages that we're seeing in the response that we got for survey responses. So again, something to bear in mind, just kind of for future kind of considerations and stuff, that Everett actually does have a fairly good breakdown or representation of these other groups beyond just what we see on the screen. It's more like 60%, 60 to 70% white. Yeah, absolutely.
So do you believe that that's because we didn't do enough outreach into the neighborhoods or the areas of color or the diverse areas? Or do you think that is a population that is hesitant to fill out a survey? I mean, I'm just curious because I know from walking and driving and interacting that we are more diverse than that.
Yeah.
Slide would show, but why
Good
did we get
question.
a good response that way?
Yeah, why were there any barriers to
Right.
engagement for it? Good question. I'm gonna have us put a pin in that, let Chelsea wrap up, but then pick that answer back up so you can see all where the rest of the responses lie.
Okay.
You're good.
You're okay.
And one of our other goals in this was to make sure, just because the funds that we're putting out do have to go into the community to benefit low, moderate income and vulnerable persons. And so if we're giving funds and putting this investment in the community, wanting to make sure that folks on the receiving end of services are also a part of helping to shape and craft how that's happening. And so we not quite, our goal was 40%. We're at about 38% of the folks that participated in this survey identified as low income. So we're close. Next time.
Okay, so I'm going to pause this here,
Okay.
then I can pick up Susan's question.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with, and then I'm going to invite Chelsea or Vicky to kind of pipe in. But we did monitor this as we were going through and doing a lot of the engagement. We kept checking in on where results were and stuff. And so there was very intentional strategic engagement that we try to do to pivot to try and kind of see, it's like, oh, well, because I mean, nobody wants a dominating response from one group on any survey. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Bias or definitely kind of come in for anything, right? So with that, you know, we really kind of then focused on, you know, both Vicky and Chelsea both went to Nubian Jam, Latin American Music Festival. We tried to do some real good outreach. We had everything translated that we could into Spanish. We even had Marshallese because the Marshallese Association did something in May. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of the event.
It's their Constitution Day.
Right, yeah, thank you, thank you. So there, as best as we could with the limited capacity we have to pivot, we tried to do that. We also, that was kind of some of the messaging also with the reaching out for subrecipients and everything that we try to do to then kind of branch out and do a little bit more. As far as the reasons of why we didn't get the engagement that we got, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I have, being in the position that we're in, also being in this spot of being a government official, I think that we also have our own kind of blind barriers that we're kind of not able to see on some of it. I will say that the responses that we got now are better than we got 5 years ago. So it was more engaging overall, but it's minimal, incremental improvement for engagement. Other than saying, I think that there's some things that we're really not seeing to help with that, because we also, one of the things that's considered that we need to be mindful of when we do public engagement is that the city has, and you guys are fabulous, but you're a perfect example of it, where you have people that are consistently involved in city engagement. So they're comfortable with it, they're used to it and stuff. And we hear a lot of good responses from people that are consistently engaging with us. If you're on a committee, if you come to the city council meetings, if you get the newsletters and stuff, you're more than likely to already engage with us. Getting those new connections is always very hard. And then on top of that, you have the perception of the government coming in and asking you personal questions about where do you live? We try to make it an effort of, I do not want to know people's names. I do not want to know their citizen status. I do not want to know anything too specific, so that could kind of take away some of the perceptions of the government coming in and asking you questions on stuff. But it's, you know, I think that there's a lot of stuff that we're still needing to be better of with our own identification of barriers for engagement. So we did the best that we could with the limited resources. Can we do better? Absolutely. Is there opportunities for us to get that? Please let us know what we can do to keep that in mind for future improvements for it. But at that point, I'll give it back to the staff to see if there's any other comments on thoughts on any of that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other follow-up questions?
No, that makes sense. And, you know, I'm always thinking of how to solve the problem. So
Yeah.
I'll stay on figuring out what to do in 5 years.
Okay,
I'm
great.
still around.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to go through the top needs as they were kind of by category, the first one being through the survey. So this slide here, you'll see that the top needs identified through survey responses under the category for public services for all persons included 1, mental health services, 2, senior basic needs, and 3, crime prevention. The category public or community public facilities and infrastructure was 1, parks and open spaces, 2, neighborhood facilities, and 3, community partner public facilities. And then we had the housing for all persons. So 1 was affordability and access improvement, 2, creation of new affordable and supportive housing, and 3, housing placement for special needs. So that was identified in the survey for like veterans, seniors, etc. And then we also had for category housing for all persons, affordability and access improvement. Okay, I thought I was. Sorry. For category persons experiencing homelessness, we had behavioral health services, 2, housing and emergency shelter, and 3, food. And then for the economic development category, we had 1 being job skill training and job placement, 2 was financial and technical help for small businesses, and 3 was historic preservation and exterior building repair. Next, please. Awesome. So the next slides are the needs as we saw them through public engagement. Go ahead. And these are just slides on or pictures from the board. So towards the end of the time of the survey, when we were gearing up for events, we tried to come up with a different way to ask for the community's response. And so what we did was, as the survey results stood, we took those 10 identified needs, put them on engagement boards, and then at the Everett Pride event, Nubian Jam, Latin Music Festival, and Hawthorne School Resource Fair, anyone that stopped by the table was given 3 stickers and asked to vote for their top 3. And as you can see, we had a lot of results in that. The one on the left was Pride, which was the first time we had done this, and I counted all of those stickers up. We had like 580 people stop by and vote, which was really cool. And it was torrential downpour at some point during the day. And so I was impressed that many people continue to show up. But this resulted in really good engagement, and definitely something I would recommend us doing 5 years from now. But I thought it was fun, so we included pictures. And through this process, we identified, go ahead, the top needs, which I think you'll see some overlap as what we just went over, but mental health services, open space, creation of new affordable and supportive housing, housing and emergency shelter, youth public services, and behavioral health services for the unhoused. We're pretty consistent. We didn't plan it this way, but I did like that throughout each of the sticker board engagement times, the letter E kind of started to form on each of them. It got filled up, but it was fun to see, and definitely consistently shown throughout. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kimbra to talk market analysis.
So part of what we have to do for the consolidated plan is we did this fabulous extensive public engagement process, extremely important that we hear from the residents themselves about the needs that they determine. However, of course, as I just mentioned about bias, we take into account all input for guiding some of our public process. And in that, one of the things that the consolidated plan necessitates is that we do a market analysis. So we look at the housing, economics, human service, healthcare, public facility, kind of just the whole gamut of where Everett stands. And so we had, the nice thing is that there's so many reports that have been done in the last 2 years. A lot of that's either because of the infusion of money that Vicki was talking about. So that could be because of ARPA funds, COVID relief dollars that came in to help offset needs. Could be that there's also new sales tax revenue that's come into the municipality, so they need to be able to figure out how to get that out. And so we took advantage of the market analysis, the reports that have already been done by so many other partners. I think that we had, I don't have a list of all of them that you'll end up seeing, but we had a good amount. And some, I mean, I know it's over 15 that we ended up pulling from, and you'll see kind of some of the input from them. That is going to continue to guide not only the public engagement needs that we're going to be adopting tonight, but also just in general, our development of the consolidated plan. It's going to start to build out some of the narrative for the picture of Everett, so that we can, when we publish that, everybody kind of gets to see like where the housing stock is, the number of people, demographic breakdown of groups, things like that. So some of the top needs that were identified by different reports. So Provident Regional Medical Center put out a report, and they identified behavioral health, homelessness, housing instability, economic insecurity, and job skills, and then access to healthcare. That was done in 2022. Then in 2023, so United Way did a survey. They identified housing and shelter, utility assistance, and food. Snohomish County Human Services, low income, community needs assessment was done in March. So I kind of piggybacked off of what they have drafted right now. And that's housing, jobs and wages, transportation, clinical care, and childcare. Snohomish County Office of Recovery and Resilience, which is different, has also behavioral health, mental health, shelter, childcare, workforce development, and youth. So again, we're starting to see that each that different entities in the community, in the region, in the area have done their own studies over the past few years and identified their own top priority needs as well. So we wanted to take those in consideration. We also had Verdant Healthcare did a report in 2022. They identified healthcare access, mental health, economic stability, housing, food, and then Casino Road Housing Work Plan, LISC, local initiative. Oh my goodness, I wish I could remember the something coalition. Has come in. They're a national organization. They have identified that South Everett is a place that they want to really start to support and infuse some dollars and some work in. And so over the last 2 years, they have gathered people from the community, city partners, other representatives to kind of collect a cohort that can identify how to best focus on growth and preservation of housing down in that area. And so some of the things that came out of that report, which was finalized in February of this year, preservation of affordable housing, creation of new affordable housing, tenant or homeowner preservation stabilization, and then expanded opportunities for home ownership. I forgot to mention, this is also an area that the Sound Transit expansion is looking at as well. So that's the reason why this is such a important area for focus right now. And then this didn't identify top needs, but there's some really good nuggets of information. This is from the Snohomish County HO5 or housing report that was done in 2023. Some of the stuff that's come out for that was really important is that the highest risk of displacement, so of taking people out of affordable or even not just market rate housing right now, is in South Everett. In the entire county, the highest risk of displacement for anywhere in the county is South Everett right now. A lot of that has to do with not only the Sound Transit expansion, but just general market conditions. And the fact that you have a lot of naturally occurring affordable housing happening down there, and there's no restriction on maintaining it, like covenant restrictions that usually come with a lot of the funding that we end up having. So you end up having a lot of kind of just naturally occurring conversion of affordable units that were affordable now into market rate. Housing affordability then and supply are paramount as needs for that area. In Everett in general, the 0 to 30% AMI range is most needed for housing options right now. So 0 to 30% is unhoused to people that actually have jobs and still only get 30% AMI, which I used to be able to rattle this off. But in Everett, I think is somewhere around the $40,000 mark, although it might even be a little bit higher. I know the 80% AMI is around 80,000 right now. So just think about that. It's still 30% AMI. We also have, Everett has the highest percentage of renters in the county. So I think there's somewhere around like 50 some odd percent, 57% of our residents rent. So rental assistance, of course, obviously, they're an important need, right? We also have the lowest median household income in the county. The median average household income for somebody in the city of Everett, and the average size, my favorite numbers, 2.37 persons is the average household size in the city. So let's say that's somewhere between 2 and 3 people in a household. The average income that they're going to get for that entire household is $66,000 for the city. If we just remember what I just rattled off, HUD AMI 80% threshold is $80,000. So already the city and our average income is at least $14,000 less. That's actually consistent. 5 years ago when we did this, a $15,000 gap was the same issue then. Everett has consistently had a $15,000 lesser amount for average income than what the HUD AMI threshold is. Little asterisk, we remember that, of course, Everett's also lumped into Snohomish, or not Snohomish, King County with our AMI numbers. That's because of the way that HUD recognizes our metro area for Seattle, King County. So Snohomish County is included in that. And so works kind of to the advantage of saying that the reason why so many of our CDBG funds can be used citywide is because a lot of our people are held to Seattle HUD AMI thresholds. And at the same time, also really good to remember that the average income in Everett's $66,000 for a family that's between 2 and 3 people. So of the 57% that I said that rent in Everett, 52.7% of those renters are cost burdened. Cost burden means that you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing needs. Even more so, there's about 20% in addition to that of the renters that are severely cost burdened. That's 50% or more of your income's going to just housing expenses. So again, of the renters that we have, a lot of them are so strapped in their income to be able to make ends meet that that again, this sustainability, this preservation is so very important in some of the discussions that we're having about housing, right? And then on top of that, on top of Everett having the highest risk of displacement, the highest need for 0 to 30, the highest percentage of renters, and the lowest median household income, and our renters are cost burden, we have the lowest growth rate for housing in the county with the highest burden of creation of new housing. I'm going to use that to then do a segment to right now, the city's going through our comprehensive plan, very similar to what sounds like the consolidated plan. Planning and community development, planning's leading the comprehensive plan. We haven't duked it out yet on better terminology, but one of us is going to win, I promise, and I'm fairly certain I'm going to make it happen with a federal requirement. But they're going through a comprehensive plan update right now, which is the same of what a lot of cities are doing in the state. The state of Washington has what's called the Growth Management Plan or Act, which requires everybody to speak to each other when we create all of our plans. So we all have to be on the same page as we plan. And in doing that, one of the things that's been identified is that, of course, City of Everett, if you haven't known this number yet, we have a requirement of about 35,000 new housing units that have to be created, which would create up to 85, I think, total housing units in the city. That should tell you the expected growth that we have. So again, we have 35,000 new housing units that we need to create. We only have somewhere between upper 40,000. So that's almost doubling the amount of housing that needs to be created in the next 20 years to accommodate growth. And of those 35,000 units, 0 to 30% AMI is one of the biggest subsets that needs to have growth. That's not even emergency shelter. That's just permanent supportive housing. So then we have our emergency transitional beds and our unhoused population that still needs to be housed on top of that. Just letting that sit there for a minute. Okay, so that was market analysis. So we do all the public participation and then we marry it with all the stuff that's come out for all this very heavy data rich information that we've gathered from other people doing a lot of research work. Okay, so that brings us to the final top needs. And I think that's me. Okay, great. Yeah. So pull all this together. And then what does that give you? So this is what staff is proposing to be adopted for priority needs moving forward. So first, and we've done this, we're not doing this. These are not in priority order. The intent was to be mindful of COVID taught us a lot. To be mindful of creating opportunities to allow for community partners to apply as needed for any of these. So we're not going to prioritize them. It's just say, hey, this is what we're funding. And whoever comes to the all call in the first funding round, and then the next year, and then the next year, that's what we're going to look at. So and then once we get towards the end of the consolidated plan year and we really need some of those metrics that may not have been adopted to be picked up, that's when we'll also come back and say, and I think that we even did this year and a half ago and say, hey, do we need to make any adjustments to any of our goals? We tried to do that a while ago. We didn't have any community partners that could take advantage of that. My hope is that in the next few years, we start to see community partners become stronger with capital improvements and capacity. But again, we're going to be kind and just let them just cast a big net and see what fish we catch from it. So the first top priority bucket is going to be behavioral health, considering all the input that we got from that. Mental health being one of the top public engagement needs, one of the top identified market analysis needs. So mental health, any programs that support mental health components can apply under that, as well as substance use disorder programs can also apply under this priority bucket. Next priority bucket is housing. So any community partners that work with unsheltered persons in emergency shelter, that's that 0 to 30% AMI group, as well as those that are generally unhoused. Any programs that support stability of housing, that's intentional of a word, because usually we use the word affordability. So we're looking at affordability. But stability means that we're trying to maintain people in the homes that they currently are in, right? So we need to maintain stabilizing people in the homes that they currently have. We're trying to, get rid of displacement of people outside of their households. Preservation and creation of affordable housing or supporting units. Preservation, of course, is just making sure that if we have an affordable housing unit that's or affordable housing building structure, and man, that sucker needs a new HVAC system, or needs a new roof, or needs new siding, or it needs to have upgrades, or it needs remediation for whatever reason, that would go towards making sure that those that currently live there consistently have health and safe and healthy environments that they're living in. And then the creation of affordable housing and supportive units, that is always probably going to be something that we elevate. I mean, I don't know many of the housing components that we don't try and consistently elevate, but creation of new, I really hope that we start to see a lot of strength come back for community partners and being able to do that. Funding constraints, capacity constraints from community partners are really that's why we didn't see too much of that in the 2023 CAPEL report. So I'm hoping in the next few years that we have a lot of our agencies are able to get staffing, capacity, expertise back in place so that we can start to see more people applying for affordable housing, the creation of new housing units. Again, a little asterisk, by the way, remember that home funds are the only ones that can be used to support that priority. Public services, while all public services are fabulous, the ones that we would like to elevate for consideration, childcare, youth, and food. Everything up until this point has been something that was also echoed by the community, except the community, and this is the reason why it's also a good thing to keep in mind for market analysis, we did not see much input for support for childcare. And so knowing that that was something they prioritized mental health, they prioritized neighborhood resources, open parks, public space, housing stability, but childcare didn't come up. Well, market net reports show that childcare is desperately needed for support. If anybody has seen Chris Collier's presentation for Affordable Housing Alliance, and if you haven't, it's a good one. But he talks about the fact that at one point we lost about 2,300 childcare workers during the period of following COVID, in just Snohomish County alone. And so when we think about needs, staff is recommending that the committee adopt childcare, even though that was not adopted as a public engagement need. But then we also support public services that focus on youth and, of course, food insecurity, something that we also saw a lot in the market analysis reports. Economic development. This one kind of is a little bit more of, it feels like it's a little bit separated from the rest of these, but stay with me. So business support and technical assistance, of course, we definitely want to be able to support that. There is something, as I mentioned, LISC in their Casino Road work plan that came out. One of the things that's come up a lot, especially with Sound Transit, but just in general, is making sure that we're also not only keeping people housed, but keeping people, if they have a business, in the same location for that business, job security. Of course, that ties back with income too. But also we think about, especially in the Casino Road area, the cultural significance of some of the businesses that are down there. One of the things that LISC wants to do is start to look at how we can maintain a lot of the significant cultural businesses that are around that area, what we can do to help support them so that they don't get displaced, just like the housing would naturally displace. Businesses get displaced when you have this kind of turnover too. So business support, technical assistance is something that came up. Job skill training and job placement, those were both elevated by the public engagement process. Facade improvements, we'd like to see if there's something that we can do to kind of help to be in step with other efforts so that, again, businesses don't have to throw money at capital improvements. We can step in and help support that as well. And then we have micro enterprise support. Micro enterprises under CDBG, and this is a big thing that we did when we had COVID funds. We went out to small business and micro enterprise support, but micro enterprises are 5 employees or less. And again, all of this has to be still low income. So all the jobs that we're supporting, all the training that we're doing, all the business support, all the micro enterprise support has to still be for low income persons. And so that means under micro enterprise, then that's either going to be, it has to support employees that are low income, but under micro enterprise, you could also have a business owner that is still low income. And so to maintain that business in Everett, we would end up being able to give funds to be able to help to maintain operations of that business in Everett if the owner was low income, or if they had 5 or less employees and those employees were also low income. And then we have then community, neighborhood facilities, and parks and open space. Both of those were put out for both community partners to apply to. Again, that's any of the, our Child Tribes, the Village is a perfect example of that. We also helped to do some public improvements for public facility back in 2019 program year for Dawson Place over the Child Advocacy Center. So improvements to buildings like that can be done. And then parks and open space, of course, as we, one of the things that goes hand in hand with housing is a place for people to be able to go and enjoy. And if you live in an apartment, having a green space is so important. So again, keeping that available. And both of those categories too, not only can community partners apply for that, but this is also if we come into the next situation of, again, we have funds that need to go out and community partners just aren't biting on some of those funds. Then the city can come in and go, okay, what haven't we been able to move forward because of budget constraints, and it just had to get dropped off, but it is a high need and it needs to be handled for the neighborhood. CDBG funds can come in and help to support those needs so that the parks are still preserved for Everett residents. So we're keeping both of those up for consideration as well. I also just want to make a quick side note and say that CDBG funds in general, we have to remember that 15% is limited to public service support. The rest of it is, we have outside of administrative cap has to go to capital improvements. So there's a lot of this where we could have a facility, a behavioral health facility come in that wants to do capital improvements. We could have, again, housing creation of new, again, only other home, but preservation, rehabilitation of units for renters, homeowners, capital improvements, public services. That one's, of course, public services, but it's entirely possible under community facilities. We end up having a youth community center that could be created that needs capital improvement support. So a lot of this could still support capital needs, but as far as public services, we're limited to that 15% allocation. So just something to keep in mind. So anyway, so these are the top needs that we have collected. We have thought and mulled and presented and worked over for months, and we are presenting them to you to discuss and adopt. And with that, fabulous. So, Chair,
We will
I believe I get back to you.
move towards open public hearing. Here, guide. So I will entertain a motion to open public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, great. So as a reminder, comments are limited to 3 minutes. Attendees wishing to speak, please raise your hands. And then for those that are in person, our podium is this area right here. And you will need to state your name and then followed by your public comment.
My name is Sonia Bodge. I'm a resident of the Delta neighborhood. I'm the vice chair of the Delta Neighborhood Association. I'm also on the TAC Committee, Transportation Advisory Committee. I go to a lot of meetings and I was very involved in the Park District end result, which almost put me in an insane asylum. But, so I'm here. I've never participated in this committee before, so I wasn't quite sure what it was all about. So I'm trying to take notes and learn. And I thought this looked like something our neighborhood really should be involved in. And because through the park district process, we identified that we're happy and look forward to more supportive housing be built. They're going to have 1,500 units be built in our neighborhood over 10 years. That's 3,000 plus residents. Hawthorne Elementary, I think, has the highest concentration of low-income children in our neighborhood. We have a high concentration of Everett Housing Authority units, HNN, Housing Hope. We have a lot of people in need. When the Riverview Apartments opened up, there was a huge influx of teenagers. And then when Madrona Square opened, again, you see gobs of them running around, and they're not always well behaved. They need somewhere to go. We went with Dan Templeman and some other people from the community and went up and saw the teen center at the Boys and Girls Club on the Tulalip Reservation, and we would love to have one in the Park District. I'm not sure how this all goes about, but that's one of the things we're looking for is the teen center. When it comes to parks and open spaces, we're hoping the city can acquire the 7 acres of wetlands behind the Boys and Girls Club, and that we can get some collaboration and money and involved in turning that into some kind of interpretive facility for the schools to use and the neighborhoods to use. So as an ask, and what I see in our neighborhood that we need is a teen center, help with the Delta wetlands. We also we're homeless as a neighborhood association. We used to meet at the Baker View apartments meeting space, but for whatever reason, we haven't been able to meet there. We do meet at their Madrona Square spot, but it's a very small, it's hard for the community to find. Parking is atrocious. We could really use somewhere dedicated that we could meet where people could come in our neighborhood. So looking at the priority needs, those are my top 3. I'll just put in a quick note about micro enterprise. I think some youth can't go to college, and that should be 18 to 25-year-olds should be given small grants to start a small business. We could use some new little businesses in the North End on Broadway in our neighborhood, small daycare. Why can't they open a daycare, with a few people? Anyway, I hope to learn more. I hope that we can, reach out to us, and we can reach out to you, and we can see if we can benefit from some of this money. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a hand raised. Jane. Or as Jane.
Hello all, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jane Pack and I lead Snohomish County Legal Services. We are an organization providing free access to lawyers for low-income residents of Snohomish County and specifically Everett residents. Our services are necessary to not only but keeping people housed, and our focus is on tenancy preservation with renters, protecting people from domestic violence and helping to stabilize the family unit and to provide for basic needs. Many of those accessing our services often have nowhere else to go, and we are often a last resort, not just for their legal, but basic needs problems. Last year, we saw a 41% increase in cases over the previous year, opening over approximately 3,700 cases, approximately 35% of which were residents of Everett. We ask to continue and ensure access to more legal services for residents of Everett, the city of Everett. We can provide more information as needed, but we also want to lastly, we want to thank the city of Everett for your support for our community. And yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you. No further.
Those 2 feet.
Yeah, so written comments, because we're following kind of the city council method, because they were circulated to committee members ahead of time. Written comments will not be read into the record at this time.
there's no further public comments. Go ahead and there is a motion to close the public comment period.
I motion.
I'll second.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will go ahead and close public comment at this time. Okay, so now we can get to the committee discussing the needs here. Any committee members have questions or comments for either the speakers or for our staff?
I guess I have one comment I would like to make about, I missed your name, I'm sorry.
Sonia.
Proposing grants when the time comes. That's how you get on into the flow. So somebody should tell you that, I think. Okay, right. So there's a form, right, that goes out.
Yes, so as far as neighborhoods being able to apply for use of funds, so that's definitely a conversation that you want to reach out to city staff to start the conversation with, and then that's also then getting involved in the neighborhood office to make sure that they're on the same page with it. If it ends up being something that's related to like parks or something that would be relative to the city being able to take a supporting role, then you would also then at that time be paired with somebody from a city staff or from a department, that the proposal could be done kind of in tandem with their input as well. If it's going to be with a community partner, so you have, Boys and Girls Club you mentioned, and the fabulous facilities also in other locations, then it's something that then we need to see something coming from a community partner. It sounds like at this point in the process, it may be just a good idea to start meeting with, you can reach out to Vicki or myself, and we can meet with you and kind of talk about some kind of paths for ideas for activities. But yes, anybody that would like to apply, we roll out notification of our funding availability early October. That'll be announced.
Yes, early October.
Fabulous. Okay, so early October is when we're looking at that. We keep it open for a few weeks. So it sounds like end of this month and the month of September would be a good time for us to meet. So. Thank you for follow-up on that. And yes, any other comments to committee or public comments? Otherwise, give it over to you, Chair.
Okay, so is there any concerns about the needs recommendations from the staff?
No. Would you like for us to put it back up on the screen for consideration?
Okay, do anybody else?
Fine.
Okay. Christina, do you want to review it again, or are you okay? Okay, thumbs up. So then, at this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the needs as recommended by the city.
I so move.
I'll second it.
Great. Okay. If you would like to accept it, go ahead and raise your hand. So that is of the 5 committee members here, so we go and accept that. Right, then I think that's all for me, so I will turn it back over to you guys.
Yay! How exciting, guys. Wonderful. So now plans and our goals have been set for the next 5 years, and it's very, very exciting. I will give it to, at this time, if the public would still like to join, you're more than welcome to hang out, but we're going to do some staff updates real quick. And I'm going to give it over to Vicki to give some initial updates, and then I'll chime in with some myself too.
Great. Okay. So the next step is public comment periods. So the public comment period for priority needs will end on September 27th. We'll have a notice going in the Herald on August 27th, kind of formally opening that up for the 30-day comment period. We also will be starting the comment period for the 2023 CAPER, and that will run until September 13th. And we will also put out a news flash for anyone who does not receive the community development news flashes where we put our public notices. You can reach out to staff or you can go onto our website to get on that. We were looking at this point of our notice of funding availability to for federal and state grants to open on October 2nd and close on November 6th. That's pretty sure that those are the dates we're going to run it, but we haven't officially finalized it yet, but we're looking at October 2nd to November 6th for our notice of funding availability for federal and state grant funds.
You want to do the last one and I'll jump in on those.
Perfect. So one item in regards to the 2024 program year, which started July 1st. We unfortunately, there is one subrecipient. I'm not sure if you've heard that Hand in Hand is no longer
They dissolved as an organization.
Dissolved. So they were slated to receive about $18,000 of rental assistance to give out to the community. So in order to maintain the intended use of funds, we had two other organizations that were going to be providing rental assistance. One was Interfaith Association. The other was the YWCA was going to be providing rental assistance. So we are looking at splitting that $18,000 between those two organizations. And we would ask them if that is something that they are able, can they accommodate? Would they be able to expend the funds for rental assistance by June 30th of 2025? But assuming they're able to do that, then that's what we would look at doing with those rental assistance funds that Hand in Hand unfortunately will not be able to utilize for the 2024 program year.
This, with the dissolving, is that going to impact like a specific group within Everett, like where they focused on a specific area that the other two may not be, or is there enough overlap?
Well, Hand in Hand was more focused in South Everett, but I mean, that was where they were located. I think these other organizations, I mean, they can serve any, well, low income Everett residents who live within the city limits. So that's kind of the key qualifier is some people who live in Everett don't live in the city limits. So unfortunately, the rental assistance, you have to live inside the city limits to receive it. That's part of our CDBG and HUD regulations that the funds be provided in city limits. So the other organizations can serve people from those areas.
Okay, but Hand in Hand wasn't specific for like single mothers or?
No, I mean, they focused on youth, but they provided rental assistance as, people came to them and as they saw that it was appropriate to disperse.
Okay.
They used to be located in the village. So the funds that just went for roof replacement and flooring repair and stuff for Child Strives the Village, Hand in Hand used to have operations out of that facility. So a lot of also who they got connected with were a lot of the people in the Casino Road area, and a lot of the persons that kind of use some of the other programs and services. And Hand in Hand was fabulous when it came to COVID response for rental assistance. So we were quite disheartened to hear about them shutting their doors. Really hope that other agencies are able to step in and kind of help to fill the gap on some of the work that they were doing. But no, we were quite sad to hear about that ourselves. So
It'd be nice if one of those two could have somewhat of a presence there just to keep the accessibility.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's kind of, and I think that also is, and I'll try and do my best to kind of every time that we meet, give updates on this work that's going on in the Casino Road area, especially with the work group and with LISC being a part of that and everything else. But the consideration about displacement absolutely is at the front of everyone's mind with that. So no, that's our hope too, is that we continue to see housing stability focused in that area especially. I'm going to jump in. We have two other report or updates. One is the assessment of fair housing report. Affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, which supports the Fair Housing Act, was something that came out under previous presidential administration with Obama. It was basically the fact that saying, great, everybody's doing this analysis of impediments. You guys get money from HUD. You have to do this report about fair housing in your community. Everyone was doing this analysis of impediments on things. We have one. It's on the website again, if anybody needs some light reading material. And it was fine. You know, everybody, all the municipalities across the nation did this. And then all of a sudden, the Obama administration started to see it's like they're not like engaging quite right with some of their community members. And so then they put out a rule, administration changed, that rule paused, new administration came in, that rule got picked back up. And now we're in the process of now we then kind of fall under what's an interim version of that rule. We're kind of going to err on more though on the side of needing to do more of the work kind of overall for that gets to the full intent of the AFFH rule itself, which is why then you end up creating something of all these acronyms called an equity plan. And the equity plan is the engagement and input from the public in addition to everything that we just did about fair housing compliance for the city. And then there's an analysis that'll happen. We've talked with the consultant. We went out for procurement, fancy word of basically just saying that we asked, hey, is anybody interested in doing some of the work for this, creating this report? We have to have a third party come in and take a look at this because it looks at the city's discrimination complaints that have been filed with the state, looks at the city's zoning laws and practices, and are we equitable in some of the policies that we're putting out in our own municipal code, looks at how we're allocating funding. Are we funding fair housing groups? How are we doing on supporting for education of tenants and homeowners and their rights? All of these, everything that would fall under fair housing, it will evaluate how the city's doing that. So you could probably want to, you want a third party to evaluate that kind of stuff, right? So we have talked with a group. We're going to be, we've chosen, we're going to be consulting with Northwest Fair Housing Alliance. They were the ones that also ended up doing our analysis of impediments last time. So that's just kind of serendipitous that ended up that way this time. But they're going to be pulling together the equity plan, looking at doing additional engagement. They're going to get everything that we got from this consolidated plan survey, everything that the comprehensive plan's doing for housing. And then they still get to look at, okay, what did you miss? And so there's probably going to be some stuff that we talked about earlier that they might bring up going, great job over here, you missed some spots over here. And so they might go out and specifically ask for fair housing compliance in some of the gaps that we didn't touch on. That report, they're going to be working on a lot of stuff. September through November, they'll be coming to this committee, presenting to this committee a lot of their findings. And then the final report will probably be presented in March, February of next year. And then that's going to be submitted in tandem with the consolidated plan and then our CPP that you guys just adopted. Like asterisk real quick. The CPP is the way that we were able to reallocate some of the rental assistance dollars that just got unused. So if anybody's interested on how did that happen, go to your CPP, read through some of that, and if there's anything that we need to revisit on it, let us know. Reach out to staff, and we'll talk about it. But just in case anybody's kind of wondering why some of those questions have come up in the past, CPP is the way that we ended up doing that. Anyway, so bring it back. So we have the equity plan, the assessment of fair housing report. That's going to get kicked off in I'm hoping to get that contract signed in the next 2 weeks. So that'll start soon. And then our consolidated plan, just again, reiterating what I kind of mentioned again previously, the consolidated plan runs in conjunction with what the city of Marysville and Snohomish County do for their consolidated plans as well. The 3 jurisdictions, Everett, Marysville, Snohomish County, just sent out a collaboration calendar for the consolidated plan. And so we're going to now start to have some really hard deadlines on getting some of the really fun reads about the market analysis or any of the things about, again, strategic plans or any of this. Some of that's going to start to be formalized as we start to work with other jurisdictions on it. And again, when it comes to timing of everything, just know that if we are knocking on your door every single month to meet, it is because we kind of have a requirement that's in tandem with other jurisdictions that we're working in partnership with. So that's what I have on that. And then I'm going to wrap this up with, you guys just decided on funding for the next 5 years, which is pretty cool. And at the same time, I think that you're gonna, this is, I mean, COVID, who could have seen anything happening with COVID in 2020? And the committee did a fabulous job of pivoting for everything that happened during COVID. But the next 5 years, I think, are going to be another dynamic period for the city, especially as everything that's happened. Right now, there's a meeting going on over in the warehouse room about the city budget that is about some of this. And so there is, you guys just solidified funding for things that are going to help to support the next 5 years in the community outside of the city's budget and purview of what we're able to do on a day-to-day basis. So huge thank you to you guys. And thank you so much for giving us your time. And to that point, I'm going to give it back to Chair to adjourn.
I do have one question. So, did we shrink? Did our committee shrink? I remember that.
Two. Fabulous question. Yes, since we last met, didn't we,
Well, 2 people have moved and 1 had to resign, some family.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. You were gonna go to the, and sit.
Oh, yeah, we
See
did
if you
take
could
it from
shrink that.
11 to 9.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes, that happened.
That happened.
I
Never knew.
It's been a crazy year.
And our name changed, which was awesome.
Correct. And
But-
to that point, let me then revisit that there is an ordinance that happened, oh God, May, whatever, in spring earlier this year.
Sometimes.
Time is fluid. So went through a name restructuring,
Right.
expansion of duties, the
Right.
things that you guys used to do with just funding related to this, you now are going to be asked to do more in the next few years. While we have seen that, yeah, some budget streams might be constrained, new money still floating out. We still, as I mentioned earlier, we have sales tax dollars and we have all this other stuff that's kind of coming into the city and might be passed through for money that came through from the state or Snohomish County or whatever. So as far as opportunities of what's going to come your way, I don't even really know all those yet, but the answer is that we made you expanded in your powers that be is to allow you to give oversight to any of those functions that come up. One of the major things that's also happening with the community development team, because I know I'm trying to talk real fast, we've got some other priorities going on, is that community support team is going to now be expanded in a sense. There's a U.S. Department of Health and Human Service grant that was secured for them, which is fabulous. SAMHSA or SAMHSA, as some of us are trying to call it right now, because it's a lot of acronyms, is going to end up supporting a lot of the community support work. So we're going to see that there's an infusion of social workers, case management collaboration, and that's fabulous. And then we have opioid settlement dollars. Chelsea is going to be the lead for opioid settlement dollars in the city.
Nice.
So if anybody has some fun questions about that, kick it over to Chelsea. As all of this kind of settles and new stuff comes up that needs to kind of go back out for the community and dedication of any of this community support work, any of the new funding sources that might come in, this committee now has been expanded to be able to do some of the powers that be, to be able to give oversight for that. And we have construction going on. In the middle, in addition to that, though, we did reduce to allow for, great, we have all this work we need to do. We have got to make quorum on a regular basis. So this is we went from 11 down to 9 so that our quorum wasn't as missed as we ended up having. Now it's like, got to have at least 5 people.
6 members, right, currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
And we,
Any more? Yeah.
board and committee recruitment will be starting again this fall. So through Lisa talked about that during communications meeting today. Lisa Sirval.
Great.
So we will be working on trying to fulfill a few positions on the committee.
Yes.
So
Any other questions?
No.
Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mike.